Hi guys, welcome. Welcome everyone. So I'm gonna give everyone maybe 2 more minutes to join us, and then we'll start just to make sure we're not missing anyone, that everyone is here. And this is what we're gonna be painting today. So here we are, our 2 awesome pumpkins. And yeah, I'm gonna go through a supply list in a second as well, but I'm gonna be using circular canvases. I actually couldn't find the same size anymore. I got them once, should have gotten more than that, but didn't think that through. So we'll just wait another minute, and then we're gonna start. All right, guys. So hopefully we have everyone here, and whoever is not here, hopefully will join us very shortly. If we haven't met before, my name is Vera. I'll be your instructor for tonight. And this is what we're gonna be painting today. Our 2 awesome pumpkins. It's like a set of 2 that you can either put on a shelf or hang, depending on what you're using. You're welcome to use either canvases similar to what I'm using, which is just oval canvases. I purchased these 2 canvases, and as you can see, they're not very large. I purchased those 2 canvases at local store called Dollar Tree, so they were $1.25, which is great. But I went on a hunt today to see if I can find some more, and unfortunately they didn't have them in stock. They don't always have them. They have them on and off. So next time when they have them, I'll probably buy a couple more to have a bit of a stock at home. But they did have those circular canvases. So I'm going to be using a circular canvas today instead of an oval canvas. If you don't have oval or circular canvas, you're welcome to use square. It's totally fine. This painting will work on square, on oval, on circular. Doesn't really matter. So whatever you have, you're welcome to use that. So I'm going to open up my 2 canvases here, and we're going to be using an acrylic paint. Oh, yeah, all right. That is done. And I'm going to be using an acrylic paint, pretty standard, so primary colors as we usually do, which is white, black, red, yellow, and blue. And I'm going to be mixing them into all those wonderful shades on these 2 pumpkins here. Yeah, and as far as brushes, use whatever is appropriate for the size of your canvas. So for me personally, I don't need anything, let's say, like that. It's way too big. So I'm going to likely be using a variety of medium-ish brushes, medium square. So anything from, let's say, this is number 5 and this is number 10. So anything in between. But really, I wouldn't go by number. As you can see, they're all just medium. Some are medium, some are medium small, some are medium very small. And of course, we're going to need a detailed brush because we do have a lot of details here. And one color style, so a color that would be helpful to have pre-mixed is brown. If you have it, great, because we're going to put on a stemmed brown. If not a problem. We can mix it together. That's what I personally be doing. I'll be mixing my brown. So if you want to mix along with me, that's great. And green, again, it's good to have pre-mixed if you have it. If not, we'll mix it together because I'm going to be mixing mine. I don't use pre-mixed colors. And of course, as always, it's great to have a paper towel because we're going to be dabbing our brush on it. and of course, water. But before we start and move on to all this painting, I'm gonna put this all aside and I'm actually gonna grab a pencil because we're gonna start with just a sketch with a normal pencil if you have one. If you don't have pencil nearby, not a problem. You can always use like a light gray paint to sketch, but pencil, of course, is best. All right, so let's start with a simpler pumpkin. I'm gonna put this one aside, and we'll start by sketching this one. Very simple. You're just gonna identify where the middle is. This one I position stem a little bit lower than the middle because it's so big, right? So if I position this right in the middle, it's gonna almost be at the very top. So you can position it the same way that I did, so just a little bit lower than a middle, or you can do the total middle if it bothers your brain that's actually not in the middle. So I would say somewhere here, I'm going to put a dot. That's just for me to know that's where the middle of my stem is going to be. So again, as you can see, it's a little bit lower than a middle. Now from that area, I'm going to start adding lines. So do you see there are curved lines going all the way around here? So it doesn't matter which direction you start. I'm going to start this way. An advantage of doing that with a pencil first is that you can always redo it. If it didn't turn out right from the first try, or you just don't like it for whatever reason, you can always just erase it and do it again. And we're going to continue adding those. On the top, I'm actually do something different. So instead of continuously going like that, I'm going to turn those two like this for the top part. So do you see I turn this one the other side? And then just continue doing the same thing. And that's pretty much the base for my pumpkin. And I know it looks a little weird right now, but because we don't have a stem, this just looks like a ball. So let's start adding a stem. And I'm gonna aim for this dot to be the actual middle. And I'm gonna add a bit of something that looks like a spider web around. Like that. And if you can erase the middle, you can. If not, that's okay. Mine doesn't erase super well, and that's fine. Totally not a big deal. And now I'm going to add a stem. So from somewhere here, I'm going to bring it up. And you see it's thinner on top. Actually, I will make it even thinner than that. Why not? Thinner on top, thicker on the bottom. That's the main thing for our stem here. Oh yeah, this is better. Well, this will be painted, so we don't have to worry about that. So that's pretty much the first sketch for our first pumpkin. You don't have to sketch this swirly thing. We'll just add it on top. It's super, super simple. That's all we need to know here and all we need to sketch here. And it's good that we practice on this pumpkin because this pumpkin is generally darker, so you'll be able to cover all your pencil lines. As we move to our second pumpkin, you may need to be a bit more careful because second pumpkin is much lighter pumpkin. So you may not be able to cover all your lines if you put too many extra lines. So try to minimize your lines, or maybe try to use your pencil very, very light as you sketch this pumpkin, just because it's so light and so white. But I'm going to give you guys a little minute to finish up this pumpkin before we move to the second one. And let me see if you have any questions. I'll try to answer to the best of my ability as we go. Hi, Lori. Yes, Alicia, the video will be saved. If anyone is new here and you guys are joining for the first time and you're not sure how it works, the video is going to be saved, so you can come back and do it anytime. If let's say something comes up today and you can do it today, or let's say you just came across this and you're not prepared for this right now, that's okay. You can do it any other time. The video is not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay right here on YouTube, so not to worry. All right, let's sharpen this pencil. All right, so I'm going to put these pumpkins aside and let's move to our next pumpkin. And I'll do the same thing for this one. So notice for this one, and this one I went a little bit higher, but only because you see this one is bigger and this one is smaller, so it doesn't throw it off too much to put it in the middle. But again, if you want them the same size, go for it. If it bothers your brain that one is bigger than one is smaller, make them the same size. But in that way, make sure you line the first dot in the same area. So if your first dot here was a little lower than the middle, put it a little lower than the middle on this one as well. If this one was in the middle, then this one you want to put in the middle as well. So just keep that in mind. And again, we'll try to use our pencil a little more lightly here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot somewhere around the middle here. And I'm going to start doing my lines again, very similar to what we did with the other one. Just I'm going to try to keep it lighter. All right, so I have this ball-like sectioning again, which I'm happy with. Now I can move to my stem. And I'm going to do something similar to what we did with the first one. I'm going to start with putting something that looks like a spider web. And then I'm going to turn that into the stem. I can get closer here because I know I'm working pretty light, so it can be hard to see. So something like this. And another thing I'm going to sketch here is this beautiful leaf that we have. So here it is. You can, if you don't mind working light again and erasing everything, you can start by just generally outlining the shape. You don't have to add all the fine details right away because it's a little bit hard to just do it all in one shot unless you're used to painting leaves and that's what you do all day, every day is you paint leaves. But if that's not the case, then I would recommend just outlining the shape of your leaf first. So let's say it goes from here and it ends somewhere here. That's a good general shape of the leaf. Now I'm going to start perfecting it. So now I'm going to add, you see there's two smaller chunks coming out on the sides. So I'm going to add a chunk here. And a chunk here. Now that I have a general shape with two chunks, I'm going to start perfecting that shape. And you can erase everything that you see underneath the leaf as well, so it's not so confusing. If you do this with paint, not a problem. You don't have to erase it. You're not going to be able to, and that's fine. Just keep in mind what lines are what so you don't get confused yourself. That's only reason why I'm erasing it. The paint will cover it up properly, so nothing to worry about. Now I'm going to go over the outline of this leaf again, but I'm going to add more of like zigzaggy lines to create certain areas that go out and certain areas that go in. So for example, right here, I'm going to add an area that goes out. Then I will keep this the same. An area that goes out. A couple more along the way. So it creates this zigzaggy edge. And I'll do the same on the other side. Ta-da! Here is my leaf. It is done. At least the shape of it is done. Now the middle, you can sketch it, but you don't have to. For me personally, I wouldn't be sketching it. I find there's no reason why. And the reason why I actually probably would advise against it is once you're going to paint everything green, you will likely lose all those lines anyway, unless you make them very harsh with your pencil, in which case you will likely still see them. But if you make them super light, they're going to be covered up by your first layer of green anyway, so you're going to need to freehand the lines on top either way. However, if you prefer everything sketched in advance, what you could do is you can always just sketch it a little bit thicker and a bit more visible, how I did with my leaf here. That way you'll make sure that you can still see them through your first layer of paint. And at this point, once you finalized your lines, you can harshen them up, if that's a word, makes them a little more visible. Now that you're not sketching anymore, you know exactly where they're located and what they look like, because those ones you're not going to be erasing, so you can make them a little harsher, just for you to be able to see them better. Only if you need to. If you don't need to, that's fine. You don't have to do that. So here are pumpkins. And it really doesn't matter actually which pumpkin we start with. So since we are on this pumpkin, we might as well start with this one. Because again, it doesn't matter which one we start with, they're completely different. So what are we going to do? We're going to start with the body. So we'll do the body on this one, then we're going to do the body on the other one. After we have the body, we're going to do the stems. We'll do the stem on this one, and we'll do the stem on the other one. And the last thing we're going to do, we're going to do the leaf on this one. So we'll do it all in stages. And actually, it would be best to start with a light pumpkin because our water is still super clean, our brushes are super clean, our palette is super clean. Everything is nice and clean, so it would be great. And guys, sorry, just want to mention to make sure we all are aware. If this is your first time again joining us, great, welcome. So glad you're here. But beware that even as we are still live on YouTube, even though this video is not fully recorded because it is recording as we go, you can even now rewind it and start from the beginning. So if you're just joining now and you don't know what happened until now and you just want to see how we got where we got, you can rewind to the beginning, and even as we're live, you can start watching from the beginning. Or let's say you need to rewatch certain section, you need a bit more time for certain section. After this video is recorded, you'll be able to actually pause it. But until then, as we are live and it is recording, you can just rewind to the beginning and you can start watching from the beginning. All right. So right now we're only going to use some sort of medium brush, whatever is comfortable for you, and black and white paint. That's all we need right now. We're not going to be using anything else. So I'm going to take my brush. I'll dip it in the water. Now, I like doing them one at a time. If you want to do all of them in one color, then second color, then third color, that's fine. But I kind of like working them in sections. So what I'm going to start with, I'm going to use two colors. I'm going to use white and I'm going to use light gray. But because I'm going to use them pretty much at the same time, I need to mix my light gray. So I'm going to put some white on the side. I'll take a little bit of black. I'll add it in, mix it in, make nice light gray. All right, we'll see if that works or not. It looks like a good color to me, but I wouldn't know if that's a proper color or not until we actually try it. So let's try it. And I'm gonna wash my brush. I'm gonna start with straight white. I'll take straight white and I'll go onto one of the sections and I will cover up, not the entire section, but the big part of it. Let me show you close up so you can see on the reflection what I'm covering. You see pretty much all this mid part of the section. Like all this I'm covering with white. And while it's still wet, I'm going to take a little bit of that gray and I flick it from the bottom and onto those lines on the sides, like this. And then I wash off my brush, I dab it off on a paper towel as all of it is wet, and I go ahead with clean, slightly wet brush. Make sure you dab it off on a paper towel so it doesn't have that extra water. And I blend it, and you see it creates a beautiful, nice transition between white and gray to the side and gray to the bottom. And then as soon as I have that, I'm going to move on to the next section and do the same thing. And the goal is to do this pretty fast because it's much easier to blend all of this on wet. Once it dries, it's a little bit trickier to blend. So again, I'm going to take white, add it here, then gray, again onto this edge, onto the bottom, and onto the other edge. And as soon as I have that, wash off my brush, dab it on a paper towel, and go ahead with a clean, slightly wet brush and blend all that. So now I have two sections, and you see white is most white right here, and then gets darker to this separation line and darker to the bottom. And I'm just going to continue doing the same thing, going further and further. So again, wash off my brush, take some white, add it into the section here. And guys, lay your white generously. You don't have to use just a little bit. You can use a fair bit of it. And if you get onto your leaf or onto your stem with either of the colors, that's totally fine. Once we move to the actual color that needs to cover those stems, it will cover it no problem. So don't be really avoiding them. That's okay if you get on them, not a problem. Sorry guys, I'm gonna turn off the sound on my phone. All right. Hey, only a couple left for me. And last one. And ta-da, here is our base for this pumpkin. So it's not done, but it is a very nice solid base that we will work on. I'll give you guys a second to do this. And then we'll move on to our next color on the same pumpkin. Hi, Lai. And the next color, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to add slightly darker gray from the very middle and a little bit on those separation lines. And we're going to use smaller brush. So I'm not going to be using the same one. If you have, let's say, something like this, which is a medium small. So as you can see, it's still not the smallest. It's not like this pointy number 0, 0. This one is a little bit bigger than that, but it's not like medium either. Hi, Len, it is Vera, yes. So I'm going to be using that. If you don't have anything similar to that, that's fine. Just use the smallest brush that you have. Smallest brush will work, no problem. And it will make gray. It's a little bit darker than the gray we just used. I wouldn't say make it super dark. I wouldn't even say make it medium, but definitely make it a little bit darker. And I'm going to water down that a touch as well. Yeah, I think this would work. You see my first gray is right underneath, and you can see the difference. My first gray is this one. My second gray is this one. They're like a shade or a shade and a half different. Yeah, and let's see. Let's try it and see. Oh yeah, that's perfect. You see, it's a little bit darker, but not crazy dark. And we're just gonna add a little bit of that very lightly. Don't use too much paint here because you don't wanna blob it on. You wanna dry brush it on. And you're gonna add it on the lines and also a little bit from the middle out. So like this. Do you see? I'm just dry brushing it from the middle out, just a touch to darken up generally this midsection and to darken up those lines. Oops. And I'm going to add it a little bit underneath this leaf as well, just to give it the look of a shadow. So from the leaf out, I'm going to flip a touch of that. And you can do either the top side or the middle or the bottom side, one of the sides. So on this one, I did the bottom side. On this one, I wanted to do the top side, but it doesn't matter. Whichever side you choose to, just do only one side. Because if you do two sides, it's not going to make sense which side the light is coming from. So only add it to one side. And then I'm going to wash this brush. And I'm going to add my last gray here, which is going to be dark gray. And for that, you're going to use your small brush. So let's make it. And you're just going to need a touch of it, tiny, tiny touch. So do you see I'm making pretty dark gray? It's like, let me show you closer. It's my dark gray. But I'm only going to use, again, just a tiny touch of it in a small brush. And I don't want to do full-on lines. You see, they're almost like a dry brush flicks from the outside in and from the inside out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go dry brush flick from the inside out and from the outside in. So do you see they're not solid lines? And this pumpkin, the base of it is done. There is nothing else here to add for us. You can just let it dry for now, put it aside, start working on a base for another pumpkin, and then once we finish that base, we'll do our stems on both the pumpkins. So I know right now it looks kind of weird because we don't have a stem, we just have the base, but this is a great start. That's exactly what it needs to be like for right now. So I'm going to put this aside, guys. And I'm going to move to our orange pumpkin. So this one, we're going to use completely different color scheme, but pretty much it's the same structure that we did with our first pumpkin. It's no different, just different colors. That's all the difference. So here, I'm going to use a couple different colors up front. I'm going to use this lighter orangey yellow color in the middle. I'm going to use this straight orange for my second color. Do you remember that we use light gray for? And for my third color, I'm going to use this redder, brownish kind of color. But we'll get there. So for right now, we just need two colors. First color is going to be this lighter color. Let me mix it. So I'm going to start with base of yellow. I'll put some yellow right here. And we should probably mix a bit of it. And then I'll add just a tiny, tiny smidge of red. Mix it up, make nice light orange. And I'm going to add some white to it as well. Okay, let's try a tiny smidge. I think that's a wonderful color. So I'm going to start mixing my second one. And my second one, again, I'm going to start with yellow. So I'm going to put some yellow on the side. Again, fair bit of it. And then I'm going to use this time more red to create more of a vibrant orange. And again, I'm going to add some white to it as well. And the white I'm adding to both of my colors, not for the color. I can make it light without white. I'm mostly getting for consistency because I know my paint and a lot of student grade acrylic paint that's similar to mine in a make. It tends to be a little more transparent, so it's easier, it blends easier and it goes more even onto the canvas, and it's less transparent if you add a little bit of white to it. So that's why I'm adding white. It's not necessary for color, and if your paint is super solid already and it blends well, then you don't have to do that. But again, knowing my paint, I know that for me, that's something I have to be doing. And also it gets a little bit more vibrant as well as we add white. So let's do the same thing. And again, we can adjust colors as we go. If we start working with this and realize we don't like the colors, we'll just adjust it, we'll switch it. Let's start with this little guy here. I already have the first color started there. So we'll just, again, color in this mid-ish section. Then you can either wash your brush or dab it off on a paper towel. And then grab second color. Then again, wash or dab it off on a paper towel. And then just blend in between your two colors to create that nice, smooth transition. Perfect. And then we're going to move to next one. And so on. We're just going to rotate the same way that we've done with our first pumpkin. Just different colors. Great. Moving to next, maybe even a little bit more of a darker orange here. Yes, perfect. Moving to the next one. And so on. So to answer your question, I can show you like a slower. It's not really a trick. It's more of just the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's just as you have to kind of get a hold of this. So if this is your first time blending or you don't blend very often, it may be a little tricky. But as soon as you figure out for your own hand how to do this properly, it gets much, much easier. But let me show you super slow again. Maybe this would be helpful. So again, I'm going to take my first color and make sure you take, I'm taking a good chunk. I'm not taking just a little bit because if you take a little bit and it dries too fast, it's not going to blend. So do you see? I'm covering this nice large area. And again, there's not a couple millimeter layer. Of course, it's not a massive layer, but it is enough for it to stay wet for me for a little bit. Then you can either dab off your brush on a paper towel or wash it. I prefer to wash it most of the time, but sometimes I get lazy and I just dab it off because those are compatible colors. Either works. And now I'm going to take my second color, and again, a fair bit of it. And I'm going to layer it to those lines first. You can overlap your first color or go just to the first color. And I'm going to add a little bit from the middle out as well. And now to blend, you wash off your brush or just dab it off on a paper towel. Doesn't matter at all. As long as you don't have too much paint left on it, that's the main goal. Just colors, again, are compatible. So if you have a little bit of that color left on it, not a problem, just not a lot. And now what you do is you go over those lines where the two colors connect. So do you see? I go over that connection line, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until it creates a smoother blending here. And then you can start going a little bit to the right to pick up a little bit of that darker orange and a little bit to the left to spread it to the lighter orange. And you see it creates the transition. And then whenever you're ready, you can move to the second line. I wouldn't wash my brush here, just dab it off to get rid of that extra paint. And the same, I start where my two colors connect and I go over right that line. And when I feel like that line is blurred enough, I can start going a little bit to the left to pick up a little more of that dark orange color, and then a little bit to the right to spread that into my light orange. And keep going, couple brush strokes to the left, couple brush strokes to the right, but still notice I'm going in the same motion. I'm not switching the motion. Always, always the same motion. And the same with the bottom part, just a couple brush strokes there. And here we go. That's how our blending is done. So I hope this is helpful. I would say go slow, but you kind of can't go too slow either because if it dries, it's very hard to blend. So you kind of have to do it while your paint is still wet. So let's do next one again, a little bit slow so you guys can see. And hopefully this will be helpful to figuring out this technique. So again, I'm taking the fair bit of my first color, adding it on. Again, not piling it too much, but a fair bit. Yeah, that will do. So you're right. If you take just a touch of paint, it's not going to blend because then it dries too fast for it to blend. It's about it's big part of it is using the right amount of paint. So again, I'm taking a fair bit of it and I'm adding it on the edges and on this edge. And a little bit, couple flicks from the bottom in, from the bottom out. And again, let's dab off our brush. I'm not even gonna wash it. Just dab it off really well so it doesn't have any actual paint, you see? It leaves a little mark, but really little mark. And then I'm gonna go right over this edge where two colors connect. Continue going back and forth, back and forth. This is great. Now again, I'm gonna dab off excess paint and move to the second one. And here we go. All right, 3 more left. So let's finish those up. Oops. May need potentially to mix a little bit more of my first color I'm running low here. Just not a problem. Easy fix. Okay, next one. Down. Then next one. Down. And the last one. Done, done, and done. So I have my first layer of just two colors right now. So that's really great. I'll give you guys, oops, light, a couple more minutes, and then we're gonna move to our next color. All right, so let's move to our next color here. And for my next color, I'm gonna do a very similar step that we did for our previous painting. So we're just gonna go a little bit darker. So I have my orange still, the one that we use. So I'm gonna switch my brush again to more of a medium small brush versus just medium brush, if you have that. If not, you can always use just a small brush or a combination of medium and small. And to the same color that we're using, I'm actually gonna add a more red to it, make it a little redder, but also a tiny touch of black to bring it down a little, to make it a touch dimmer. So it's like a red or brown. So let's try this. I don't know if that's the right color. You never know until you try. I think it needs more red, to be honest. Oh yeah, that's a good color. You see it right here? It's not crazy different, but it is visibly different. You see, that's the color I'm going to be using. And what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to brush a little dry brush from the bottom out. And then I'm going to dry brush some right on those lines. And this is what it looks like on my palette. But again, you don't have to go with the exact same color. If your first two colors were slightly different than mine, then it's okay for you to have this color different than mine as well. Just make sure it's a little bit darker than your second color. So a little bit darker than the one that you used for your darkest color so far. That's the main goal when making this color. All right, and I'm gonna add two more colors here. The next color that I'm gonna add is gonna be, again, similar step to what we did with our previous pumpkin. Now we're just gonna make a very dark brown. So before we used, on our previous pumpkin, we used gray, dark gray. On this one, we're gonna use dark brown. And I'm gonna mix a whole new color for this. So I'm gonna start with some yellow. So it's basically equal parts of red and yellow. And then add some black to it. That should give you about that dark brown, and you don't need much of it. And I'm going to be using my small brush here, and I'm going to be doing flicks, just like we did with the first pumpkin. Flicks from the outside and flicks from the inside. So not one solid line, flick here, flick there. And my last color, actually, I'm going to use my medium brush again, and it's just going to be straight white, but I'm going to water it down a touch, and I'm only going to I'm going to be using a tiny little smidge of it. So do you see? I'm really rubbing into my brush, so it's not, I don't have a blob of white. I have a watered down white that's just like very lightly on my brush. And I'm going to brush it in right in the middle bottoms. So those middle sides of all those pumpkin chunks. So do you see just a tiny little highlight? Just make sure you're only using a tiny touch of white, because if you use a blob of white, this is not going to go as light and nice. And if this technique is not your favorite, you can always actually mix a whole new color. Just mix a little bit of orange into your white and make extremely like a pastel, all the orangey yellow or orange, and you can use that instead of white. That one you can use more chunky, but if you're okay with just use it very lightly, then straight white is perfect for this. All right, and after this, we can actually start working on our stem. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by mixing, I would say medium brown, and just coloring in our stem with about medium brown. So for me, I already have this orangey ready brown that I was using at the back, right? And I have this dark brown that we just used now. So I don't want to mix all my dark brown into something because I'm gonna need it actually very, very shortly. So I'm gonna preserve that, and I'm gonna take a touch of this orangey ready brown, and I'm just gonna add a bit more black to it to make it a little more dull. And then to that color, I'm gonna add a bit more white to make like a medium version of that, or even a medium light version of that. And this is great. This is exactly what I'm looking for. You see, it's still brown. It's like a coffee and cream color. And with a medium small brush, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna color in my stem. And that's wonderful first layer for it. And right away, what I'm gonna do is, as that one dries, I'm gonna take my other pumpkin and I'm gonna do the same. I'll take the same color and I'm gonna color in my stem. And I'll put this one aside again. And we'll go back to this one. Now we're going to use two different colors here on a stem and only one brush. We're going to use just a small brush. We're going to use dark brown, and then we're going to use white. So I'm going to start with my dark brown. So I'm going to take dark brown on my small brush and I'm going to start adding outline to it. To create a nice shape and give it definition. And then I'm actually going to get closer for this. I'm going to start adding lines going along here to give it a texture. So it's not just smooth around, so it has the texture. And I'm going to rub those lines into those edge spots. And I'll add some outline around this bottom as well. All right, that is good, but we're not done. So now I'm going to continue using this brown, and I'm going to bring this like a small brush strokes right here to merge it a little bit so it doesn't look so not merged into the actual pumpkin. So I'm going to add a couple of brush strokes to darken up this bottom section. And I'm going to, as you can see, I'm adding them over the stem, but over the pumpkin as well. So they're like little stitches that hopefully are more blended than stitches. And for this too, I would suggest don't use too much paint on your brush. Try to keep it to a little bit of paint on your brush. And once we're done, we're going to move to our white. So I'll wash off my brush. I'll take a little bit of white first. And again, ideally water it down a touch. And we're going to start blending it in between those texture lines, I would say. And it's great to do this on wet because you do want it to blend a little. You don't want it to completely stand out every line. You do want it somewhat blended. Some of the lines you want to be visible, some of the lines you don't want to be visible. And after that, you can take more white and actually add a couple more of a solid line. So maybe I want more of a visible line here. So I'll add one here. Just a few, don't add too many because it's just not going to look natural. And whenever you have that, you can add the swirly. So again, you can go back to your dark brown and you can add the swirly line. So for me, the bottom is, we're going to assume that it goes from here. And then it goes from here, it goes behind the stem. And then it pops up on the other side, somewhere right here, and then it goes over the stem because it wraps around it. And if you're not great at freehanding swirlies, that's okay. What you could do is you can wait until all of this dries, then take a pencil, sketch it with pencil first, and then go with paint over it. Well, that's completely up to you. And here is our wonderful pumpkin. This one is pretty much done. I wouldn't be getting anything else, but I'm going to be moving to my second one. So I'll put this one aside for now. And I'll move to my second pumpkin. And I'll do pretty much the same steps on this pumpkin on a stem that I've done on the other pumpkin. So we have our first brown. We're going to move on to our second brown now. So I'm going to grab that darker brown and we're going to start defining it. We're going to start adding the lines, the texture, all those things. And if you want to, you can extend a touch of that onto those lines, but only if you feel like it. It's not completely necessary. And then again, we're going to move to our white and we're going to start with a more watered down white. And just a touch of it on your brush to create that just slightly lighter, right, sections. We don't want them to be super white. And if it blends a little bit in certain areas with your darker brown, That's okay. It wouldn't be blending with your first brown because your first brown by now must be very dry. But that's okay. That's why we're using watered down white. We're using it quite transparent. And then when you feel like you have quite a bit of that, you can move to the actual solid white and take it a little less transparent and add a couple of lines that are more visible in the white. And again, after that, feel free to add the swirly. So for me, swirly now, it's going to start somewhere here, wrap around, then go behind, then come up from the front again. But any shape is good. It doesn't have to be specifically that. Uh-oh, losing my brush. All right, that's my swirly. And now I can move to my green leaf. So for my green leaf, I'm going to use a couple different colors. I'm going to use 2 different greens and 1 white. Julia, that's so funny. Well, I'm glad you're here and you can start from the beginning if you're ready to do it today. You can rewind video to the start even as we're live, or you can always do it later. The video is going to stay right here. It's not going anywhere. So feel free to do it whenever you're ready for it. So guys, we're going to use 3 colors. So first one is going to be our medium green, like a base green. Second one is going to be this darker green. Do you see we just have a smidge here and there of it? And third one is going to be white. So those are our 3 colors here. I'm going to start by mixing with my medium small brush, that medium green. Green is an easy color to mix. So basically you just need a base of yellow. I already have this yellow spot right here. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of blue because I'm starting with a medium green. And blue is a powerful color. If you add a little too much, it takes over really fast. So it's good to add a little by little versus just adding a huge chunk or even equal parts. So just add little by little. And then I definitely want to add some white into that. You just continue mixing, adding whatever is needed out of the same 3 components, yellow, blue, and white, until you feel like you have a great color. And then you can stop. For me personally, I think this is a wonderful color. Let's see, let's have a brush. No, that needs to be a little lighter. Okay, let's go lighter. A little bit more white to it. And we'll try it again. Yeah, that is definitely a better color. All right, and now with this color, I'm just gonna full on color in this entire leaf. And hopefully you still see some of the outline that we've created. If not, you can always just go over it either with pencil again and just add that outline or just wing it. Whatever you prefer. I can still somewhat make out what my outline was. And if it's easier for you to do edge with a small brush and then fill in with a medium brush, you could do that too. You don't have to just be using one brush. I'm quite comfortable personally with just one brush, but this brush is also very versatile. It can give you a variety of lines depending on how you use it. So again, go based on your brushes. If you have a brush you're comfortable with that can give you a fine line, such as all those zigzaggy edges, and can give you a really nice solid lines for filling the middle, then great, use it. If you don't have that kind of brush, you can always use a couple different brushes. All right, so that's my leaf. If you want an extra level of difficulty, something you could do, I don't insist that you guys do this, but I want to give you an option, is while everything is super wet, you can take some white and just blend it right in the middle here to lighten up the section already, just a touch. You see how it gets a little lighter. But you can only do this while everything is super wet. Once it starts drying, this trick is not gonna work because it's not gonna blend. And again, it's not necessary. It was just one solid layer. It's just one color is more than enough. This is in case you want to be really fancy. Great. Now we can let it dry for a second because it's a little bit easier to add all those fine details that we're going to add shortly when it's a little drier. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you guys a minute to catch up and I'm going to give it a minute to dry up. All right, I think it's dry enough. It's not fully dry. As you can see, it still gives a little bit of a print, but also it's not too bad. So I think we can move to our next step here. And our next step, I'm actually going to take watered down white. So again, I'll take a little bit of white, I'll water it down a touch to make it a little more transparent, but also a little more liquid because I find it's easier to make all those really fine lines when your paint is a little more liquid. So I'll do that. I'll get my brush off, and I'll make sure I only take a touch of this white on the tip of my brush. So what you don't want to have, actually, let me show you what you don't want to have. What you don't want to have is this, because you cannot make fine lines with this. This is too blobby. This is the line you're going to have for this. What you do want to have is this. You see, transparent paint and just a touch, so your brush still stays pointy. And then using just the tip, you can make a very, very fine lines. So that's important. The right consistency and the right amount. Make sure your brush is capable of those lines. So no blobby paint. Let's put this away. And I'm going to take my watered down paint, just a touch of it, and I'm going to start adding lines. So I usually start with right the middle, and I don't usually do a solid lines. I more do a flick here, flick there, implying that there is a solid line. Great. Now I'm going to start adding more lines. So again, I'm going to start with the larger lines that are more like a bones, structure bones for the sleeve. And then I'm going to do the smaller lines. So some of them are still going to come from the middle and go to the sides. And you see they're visible in some spots and not visible in others. It just gives us nice variety of thickness, and it's a really beautiful effect versus just having them the same thickness all the way. So I always try to have them a bit thicker, more visible where they start and where they end, and have maybe like a tiny break, or just to have them a little thinner in the middle of the line. And then smaller lines connected to this line. All right, that is our highlights. Now we're going to move to our shadows. So I'm actually going to make darker green. So for me to make darker green, I'm just going to take more blue and add it to that. So just blue. I'm not adding black. I have enough yellow, so I'm not going to be adding any yellow. Just a bit of blue. And I'm going to water down that as well. Again, reason is I don't want to use the blobby. I want to use just a touch of paint on the end of my brush so I can make fine lines. That's the goal. All right, and we're going to start adding that. And we're going to add it around those light highlights, closer to the middle and closer to the edge. So, oh, too much paint. Something like this. Do you see in betweens? I'm actually going to get closer here so you can see it better because I know it's such a fine work. So a little bit there, and now we'll add some on the end here as well. And a little bit on the other side too. All right, that looks wonderful. Now I'm actually gonna add a little bit of either dark gray or straight black. So I think I'm gonna go with straight black, but dark gray will also work really well. And I'm just gonna add a bit of definition here. So you can do it on either end. You can do it on that end or on that end. Because I added my shadow on this end, I'm gonna do it on this end. But on this painting, actually, I did my shadow on the bottom. So I will be doing this on the bottom. So it doesn't matter, just on the one side, either left or right. And another thing you could do is you could smudge it a little bit lower. So just take a bit more of it, just smudge it a bit, and then I'll take even more water, just straight water, and I'll blend it down with the water. But keep in mind, this only works if it's wet. Once it fully dries, this trick doesn't work anymore. And here we go. That is our pumpkin. So let's clean it up a little bit. All right. Let's put this one away. So this is what my original pumpkins that I made look like. Two pretty decorative pumpkins. And this is what our circular pumpkins look like that we made today. Super, super cute. Again, perfect for hanging on a wall or putting somewhere on a shelf, or even making as a gift for someone. Whatever you want to do with them, guys. If you want to sign them, go for it. I didn't sign mine. I don't know actually why I didn't sign mine. But if you want to sign them, feel free. You can sign them either on the back. If you don't want the signature to be visible from front, you can find like a little spot somewhere and put your initials there. So I hope you liked it. If you want to share your results, you're always welcome. We love seeing how they turn out. I'm going to put a link here in chat where you can just click on it and it'll bring you right to the event page for this event. That way you don't have to search around. You can just go there and you can post your results there. If you would rather not, that's okay. I don't want to be pressuring you into posting anything. So that's totally fine, completely up to you guys. But we do love seeing how they turned out. So if you're proud of your work, feel free to post them. And again, the video is going to stay up. So if you didn't get a chance to paint with us today, you're welcome to paint with us any other day. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be right here. All right, here it is. Here's the link to event page. So feel free to post it under any comment there, just make a post there. If not, you can post it on our Facebook page in general, anywhere, under any post or under review, whatever you prefer. I'll give you a link for that too, just so it's easier because you can just click on it versus having to Google or put anything in search. That is the Facebook page link that you can just go to and post your results somewhere. If you guys are new to this and you don't know much about us, welcome. We do free events, I would say about once a week here on YouTube. So there's always something new and you can see in advance everything that's coming up. So feel free to check that out. We do also Zoom events pretty much daily if you're interested in that. And again, if you go onto our Facebook, which link is right above, you can go to events category and you will see everything that we have coming up in the next month or maybe over that. And you will see all the YouTube free events and you will see all the Zoom events and all the in-person events. You'll see pretty much everything. Yes, you're very welcome. And guys, if you had fun and you would like to say thank you by tipping me, I will never say no to that. It's not something you have to do. It's not expected of you. I'm happy to be here. But if that is your way of saying thank you, I would gladly accept it. And I will post a PayPal link that you can use because again, it's just super easy. You can just click on that link and it will bring you right where you need to go. And it also is super secure. PayPal is a great way to do that. So I posted a PayPal link. Feel free to use it, but no pressure at all. And thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all enjoy your night. Bye, everyone.